Hey friends and foes, welcome to Fresh Work Podcast. It's Art Book Club Day, and I've got Visual Nomad with me today to talk about The Artist Way, weeks 5 through 8. And I read the book this time, and Jen did not, but that's okay, because I think this makes for an even more interesting book club. I love it when we have conflicting opinions about a book. Like, I've been totally into this one, and you've been like, this isn't for me. And I think that creates even more in-depth discussion about what we're reading and what we're doing.
Sure.
It's quite fun. Gosh. So, weeks 5 through 8, I have just finished the last day of week 8 today. And in my enthusiasm for weeks 1 through 4, I was doing the morning pages every day. I was doing the artist day every single week. I was really devoted to the program. But weeks 5 through 8, I've been a lot less an A+ student of the program. I would say I've been doing the morning pages 3 or 4 times a week instead of every day. And I still do the artist date, but they feel like they take so much more work than they did the first 4 weeks. And I think this is kind of interesting to talk about before getting into the chapters. It's the enthusiasm of starting a new project definitely has a peak, and then it
Sure.
has a falling out of the honeymoon phase, and then you either stick with it or you fall off, right? And so for me, I've been we both had a moment of and we don't like it as much, but I'm I kind of stuck with it, and then you were it's not for me. That's perfect. But I find myself, I was thinking back, I'm where else in my life do I have programs where the first 2 or 3 weeks I've gung-hoed it, right? And just been this is the best thing ever. I'm having so much fun. And then, a month goes by and you're my enthusiasm for this is more minuscule. And I feel I do this pattern pretty often. I feel I do this when I have a new class at an art school, when I have, if I've ever try to lose weight or do exercise or things like that, whenever I have I don't know, 3 weeks is such a peak window of time for me to stick to something. And then once it's longer than that, I have to really struggle through it. I don't know. Do you ever feel this way with programs kind of like this?
Yeah. I think like you said, there comes a point in it where it's it's the crossroads of, am I going to do this or not? You know, is it worth, it's the cost benefit analysis. And, we talked about that in Atomic Habits. How do you put it over the edge to where it benefits you so much that you continue to do it?
Right.
And, it makes me think, so I watch this show every once in a while called Interrupted. It's put on by LeBron James and his company.
Okay.
And they have a barbershop setting, and they will invite super successful people in to talk about how they got where they are, what they do to continue to better themselves and to stay on track. And one of the things the host said about LeBron James, which it kind of sets them up, people like him apart from everybody else. He said the process for him is his favorite part of all of it. That's what makes him great. He loves working out. He loves that whole idea of building that body, that skill to be able to do what he does.
Yeah.
That's all he wants. If he never played a game pro, he wouldn't care. That preparation part is his favorite. And it's hard to get to that point with stuff,
Yeah.
Most people are not persistent enough to push through. And yeah, I think it makes a huge difference with where you get.
It's interesting. I think because I was doing the morning pages every day, and then suddenly I was skipping a day, and then I was skipping 2 days, and then I would go back to it, and then I would like skip like 10 or 12, not 10 or 12 days. What am I talking about? Like I would skip like maybe a weekend, and then I would like be able to look back into my journal, which I had just started a new one on week 3, and I'm already like halfway through this, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting through this pretty fast, but the progress is slowing down. I think just having that visual marker of, oh, my habits have changed again from doing this daily and being like excited to wake up for the morning pages versus it being something now on my to-do list. It's I don't know, it's revealing. It's like, oh, okay, well, now when I go into a program like this, I'm gonna definitely consider where in the program where am I likely to fall off of it, if I am to fall off of it.
Right. Right.
One thing in particular about the morning pages, I noticed that when I was doing weeks 1 through 4, in the morning, I would do my morning page, right? I would do 3 pages handwritten, and then I would pick out stickers and I would decorate the next day's pages of like 1, 2, 3 pages with like stars and cute leaf things and whatever. They're cute. I have lots of stickers and I love them. And just putting the stickers on the page for the next day made me like excited to go into the page the next day. Whereas in the last 3 weeks, I've stopped putting the stickers down. And I think that also like that like reward process or that like intention from the previous day made a huge difference, because I noticed this and I was like, okay, now I'm going to start putting stickers there again. And I did it. And then the next day I was like, oh, can't wait to wake up and like, write my morning pages. And I was like, okay, so it's interesting. The intention of the day before really matters for what you're going to do the next day. Even if it's just put a sticker on your journal page. Like,
sure.
It's wild. Brains are funny.
Well, I mean, and that's probably why the gold star system works so well with even children. It's a visual, gamified, for lack of a better phrase, process.
Yes.
And it becomes less about what they're doing, and it becomes more about, oh, I want a star on that paper.
Yeah.
It takes that distraction of, oh, this is horrible, I hate this, and it makes it semi-fun, and it gives them an endpoint. I think it's hard to stay on track when you don't have an endpoint, when you're just like, oh, I'm going to do this, and you don't go, I'm going to do this consistently for 30 days. And set that for an endpoint. Because it leaves it open-ended, and then you just go, oh, well, whatever. I'll do it tomorrow.
I'll do it tomorrow. Yes.
We need tangibles as human beings, I think.
We really do.
I'm learning that more and more.
And visual cues really matter for artists. So I noticed this about the sticker on the journal pages the day before, and then can I tell you a secret? The secret is I've been in a creative block this entire month. I haven't wanted to paint for 4 or 5 weeks. So
I feel you.
I was like, the irony is going through this spiritual path to higher creativity and then going through one of the kind of most intense art blocks I've had in quite some time. And so like just this week, I noticed the sticker system and what had changed there. And I also noticed that I finished a painting. It's called Brave. It's 30 inches by 40 inches. It took me all of April and May to make. And I had it up on my wall easel, which is where I work on all of my paintings. And I had kept the finished painting there. And I kept it there because I didn't have any room in my like racks behind me to store it. And I had someone who was like kind of considering buying it. So I hadn't moved it off of the easel. And I realized with the sticker system that when I, in the past, have finished a painting, I immediately take it off of the wall easel. And I hadn't done that with Brave. I had just left it up there, taking up the space of the new creation space, I guess, the new. And so 4 days ago, I was like, oh, well, I do have an idea for a next piece, but I haven't wanted to work on it. And my next piece is going to be a zodiac series. I'm going to make a painting for each of the zodiac signs, and I'm very excited about it. But I hadn't worked on it for 3 weeks. I was thinking about this, not working on it, not even making notes, not even doing research for it. But I took down 4 days ago the Brave painting. I put it back on the racks, and suddenly I had this blank space on my wall, on the wall easel. And then, 2 days ago, I was like working on the gold leaf, doing the sketches, making all the things. Even though I was working at the table, the fact that this spot where I make all my new paintings and have made it so for the last 2 years is open has made me now open and willing to freaking pick up a pencil, which I haven't done for weeks. It's weird.
It's so weird how our brains work.
Mm-hmm.
Something as simple as taking that painting off the wall kicks in a Pavlovian response in your brain that says, oh, it's time to do a new painting now.
Right.
It's so weird.
It's so
weird that we were built like that. But, and I think, that's part of what we talked about in Atomic Habits is like hacking your brain. Yeah. Understanding your brain does do things like that. And using it as a benefit and not as a hindrance, but being real with yourself and going, oh, that's why I'm not doing this. Okay, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Let's tie it to this.
Yes.
It's
so weird.
I tied my to-do list to drinking coffee because it's my favorite thing to do in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm not going to not drink coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's be real honest,
It's the truth. Yeah, that was kind of like a kick in the pants sort of moment I had this week. And it has nothing to do with what I learned about in the book for week 8, which is what this week was for The Artist Way. And I think that one thing Julie Cameron in her books mentioned, she's like, things are going to come up for you that I don't intend. But because you've been doing these kind of works and you've been contemplating the idea of creativity for song, it's going to come up. And I think that's kind of one of the beautiful parts about this book is that she didn't talk about how you prepare your space changes the way you create. I mean, she does vaguely, but not like in the way that I'm like currently like mind blown about. And it was kind of cool. So anyways, that happened. So then aside from that moment, I also had, 4 weeks essentially of productive procrastination. And that was huge for me this month. Instead of painting, I still needed to feel the feeling of I'm accomplishing something for my art business. Otherwise, my like will to be creative at all is like, it just plummets. Like I worked on lots of podcast things. I finished making all the YouTube videos for my podcast that I had been doing the backlog of. I finished all that. That's 55 videos I finished. 'Cause this is insane. Worked on my website. I worked on this and that and the other thing. And I don't know. I was productive procrastination when the entire time I really, really wanted to be painting. I even like wrote it down in my morning pages. I want to be painting. I want to be painting over and over and over again. And yet didn't. I don't know. Sometimes I think you need a break. But for me, it needs to be intentional. Like, I'm going to go on a break. Not, I'm taking a break simply because I haven't picked up a paintbrush and have wanted to and have been punishing myself and my brain for it. Do you ever do?
That's fair.
Do you ever do productive procrastination?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. A lot of times if I get burnout with painting, like the physical act of painting, I will switch over to like bookkeeping stuff.
Yeah.
Business ideas, because I may have an idea or whatever. So I'll throw those in my notebook so that I have them for future stuff. I'll work on references. So then I'm still moving forward, even though I'm not physically putting like paint to canvas.
Yeah.
It still benefits everything overall. There's so many things to do in running an art business that there really isn't a day that you don't have something that you can't be doing,
Yeah.
if it's an application for a residency, if it's applying for an exhibition or anything like that, getting materials, that kind of thing, running errands, there's so many things to do.
And they do need to happen.
Yeah. So, like I haven't, I don't beat myself up over that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's easy in running a business to go, well, I'm not doing this thing. And if I'm not doing this thing, then it's not a business.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find myself doing that a lot, whatever that is for you. It could be, oh, I have, a ledger that I keep. And if I don't do that, then I'm not in a business, Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to not beat yourself up sometimes.
Yes. And often for me, I'm often being like, at the end of the day, if I intended to have a studio day and I haven't done anything for the art business, then I definitely do beat myself up about it. And I think it'll be a lifelong sort of challenge that I have, because I've been this way since I was a teenager. But yeah, it's fun to see it like really clearly, not just be like, oh, I guess that's what was happening, but to be like, I am currently doing this, and that's where I am, and that's fine. Another consequence of my art block is that I have not streamed on Twitch. I've done it twice in the last month, and that's been like, whoa. That's been like also really revealing about my own habits and my own creativity. And I definitely notice that I am more accountable when I am on film, right? I am more accountable to what I want to do, to what I'm painting, if I have a camera rolling or it's a live stream like so. And it's easy to hide from my own creative block by just not turning on the camera. And I think if I had stuck to my schedule, which is to stream 4 days a week, and if I had turned on a camera, I probably would have painted. I don't know if it would have been good, but I probably would have actually made something. I think that's also, I don't know, just something interesting to think about. It's like you have a routine for, I've been on Twitch for 3 years now, almost. You have a routine for that many years, and then suddenly you stop, and it's like, what's going on? Did you die?
Yeah.
What happened? Are you still there? And then I kind of like make up for it by, I tried streaming on Instagram one time, and that was weird, and kind of fun, but also kind of strange. And I was like, yeah, the effort is interesting. Okay, but then on like the flip side of it, with a creative block, it's like, okay, we need to be allowed to have creative blocks. Like I am often talking about getting over the creative block. That's a subject I talk about many times here on the podcast, but it's like, are you going to let yourself be blocked for a little bit? Like, how long is okay to you? Like, can you take a week off?
Yeah.
Can you take 2 weeks off? Like, you should take that time off. But like I said, even a minute ago, like allowing yourself to have that time off versus continuing procrastinating. And like, I don't know, if I had like delineated and been like, I'm intentionally taking 3 weeks off of painting, I think I would have been a lot happier the last 3 weeks.
Sure. Yeah, because there would have been intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I hit those moments, I'm real quick to recognize them, and I'm not going to fight myself.
Right.
Like, I did that for so long, and I think in my old age, I've learned to not fight that. That I've learned to listen to my body. For whatever reason, it is not in the mood to paint. It is not in the mood to do that. Yep. And I don't fight it, It doesn't end up being productive if I do.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's a weird, it's interesting. And it's fun to think about. And I don't know, I feel like I'm coming off the creative block now, because I actually got some gold on a canvas 2 days ago. And that feels super. It's not done. Like, I'm not totally out of it, because I have not completed the gold process. Normally I like to do a step and, finish it all the way through, which for gold leaf work is putting down the adhesive, putting down the gold, putting down the sealant. And I've gotten to the adhesive and the putting down the gold, but not the sealant part. And I'm like, okay, why did we stop there? That's interesting to think about. It's a start. Yeah, I don't know. Have you been on a what's the word I'm looking for? Twitch break also?
A hiatus, if you will. A sabbatical.
Yes. What's that been like?
Well, for me, as far as Twitch is concerned, when I first started, I streamed 5 days a week. 1 to 6 every day. I did not miss. I've put in a ton of time. And I've come to the point, and I think the people that watch me understand that this is a process. I've kind of explained to them, there are moments where I won't be on. It may be a little bit, I'm working on stuff. Either I'm prepping canvases, I'm doing whatever, but if I'm back, I will be back and I will work on the painting until it's finished. I have never stopped in the middle of a painting and just, not streamed. That's just not me. Like, once I get into a painting, I'm really into it. So, but yeah, there are moments that I feel guilty and I'm just like, how am I supposed to build community and viewership from a business perspective if I'm in and out periodically?
Yeah.
And I think communication is the biggest point of that, is just explaining to people, this is part of my process. You guys are here to watch me paint. You're here to learn about how people do this. This is part of that process. I'm not going to hide it and make up some excuse, and there are days that, I may jump on Discord because I don't feel like having to carry the conversation all the time, but I still want to work. So I'll jump into a chat where, conversation is just open. It's not necessarily focused on me. And I can still work, and I let people know that that's where I'm at. If they want to come watch, they can. I usually stream it so people can see it on Discord. So sometimes that's what it is. It could be I'm feeling vulnerable at the moment, so I just kind of want to do it on Discord instead. I don't want to have to explain myself. I just want to be able to do it and move through it.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's tough. It is tough. Because we're human, and I think we have to be super vulnerable as artists. Like, we are literally putting our hearts on these canvases, and then we decide, I'm going to turn a camera on and let everybody watch me do that.
This is going to go great, right?
Yeah. There are famous artists that have said, never, ever, ever let anybody into your studio. It is a sacred space. It will mess with the juju. Do not do it. And I think there's a give and take there. Like, again, there are moments where I don't want that to be open, and I will work on it on my own, behind the scenes. And I think that's why I don't ever create a reference on stream. Because that is my creative process of setting up that painting. That is where I come up with the concept. I work through that personally.
It's good.
So that's usually a very insulated process. But yeah, it's so weird how we react to things like this book, for instance.
Yeah.
This book triggers me. That is why I cannot read it. I got through the first 4 chapters, and I think the religious overtones really, really trigger me.
Yeah.
And that's just a personal thing. I think the book is very well written. I think the intentions are great. But for me, that is just too off-putting. I can't handle it. If it was here and there, that'd be fine. But it's very heavily pushed in this book, I think.
Personally. It's all over the place. Yeah. It's in every paragraph.
Yeah. So I think that's what made it hard for me.
That I totally get. And I kind of wish that I could have a rewrite of this book that is like the non-biblical version of this book. Can I have a different version, please? That would be great, because I think it would be so easy. But alas, here we are. Yeah, that's that. Have you been doing any sort of artist date for yourself, I guess, during the month? Like, are there any things that you have taken out of it that you're like, oh, this is kind of interesting?
Not particularly.
It's fine. Yeah.
I can think of off the top of my head, yeah.
I think I will continue to have a regular journaling practice even beyond this book. I mean, I kind of did before, but it would be sporadic. It would be like I journal maybe 4 times a month, and then sometimes I would take a half-year break, and then sometimes I would journal in a way that would be like, here are major life updates a couple times a year. But I have liked journaling on the regular, even when I don't do it every single day like I have been for this month. It has been nice to like get into my own mind and like get into what is working for me and what isn't working for me. Like, I don't think I would have found the comparison of the stickers and my blank easel without journaling and like diving into this. In fact, this month I was week 5 of the Artist's Way book. Talks about a sense of possibility, which I do like the title chapters. I like how they each have a very specific sort of thing. But I'm not going to say what this is, but it helped me make a like pretty major life decision for myself, which I don't think I would have dug into on my fears, on like why this thing that I had been like afraid of could actually make my life better. And not necessarily change my mind, but kind of make up my mind about a certain thing. And I was like, wow, that's a lot. And I think that has to do with the intention of journaling every day. Because she doesn't ever tell you how to journal. She just says 3 pages every morning. And I'm like, this is pretty cool. So I think I will keep that habit up even beyond doing the rest of the 12 weeks. I'm going to go through some moments here in this book. I was so good at highlighting in the first month, and this month I'm not good at highlighting. But there is a couple moments in the last 4 weeks that I kind of liked, and a couple things that I found kind of magical that happened in my life because I was looking for them after reading parts in this book. And I'm like, that's kind of fun. In the chapter about recovering a sense of possibility, she talks about how artists must have downtime, time to do absolutely nothing, and defending your right to have such time takes a lot of courage and conviction and space that you can withdraw from your family from and your friends from. And you know me, I struggle with rest. I struggle with like chilling out and it's something I'm actively looking at all the time. And having reminders like that, even in just a book that I'm casually reading, is just like, oh, right. I should like allow myself to go play a video game for fun. And
I think you have to weave that into your practice.
You gotta. And earlier this year, I had taken like a course on productivity with Nicole Baker, who I've had on the podcast before, and she had me like write a rest hour onto my schedule every day, and I have since deleted it because it was cluttering up my calendar, and I was like, I know I need to rest, and I'm like, do I need to put that back on? Was that thing that was working for me actually working?
If you have to schedule it, it might be something you need to do.
It's the truth. So, I've been like doing my artist dates. I had this moment on week 5 where I was going to a baseball game with a friend, and the friend had to cancel last minute. And I was like, do I go by myself? And I was like, this would be a very unique artist date, one that was very unintentional, to go to a baseball game where I don't know anyone. And it was like, screw it. I'm going to go to a baseball game myself. And this fun thing of possibility happened while I went there. So I'm like on the light rail in Seattle going down, and I'm just like wearing my jersey and I'm going to the Mariners game and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't really know anyone. And my dad calls me up and he's like, hey, are you on the way to the baseball game? And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I think I see you. And he's like, he sees me like down the road. I'm like in front of the gates and he like waves at me and I'm like, hey, he's like, are you here by yourself? And I'm like, yes. He's like, I'm also here by myself. And so I just like serendipitously found my dad at a baseball game. Like, it was so weird. And like, that would not have happened if I had like chosen not to go. If I hadn't, like, it was just like, senses of possibility. So I think there is some genuine power to the artist date that is like, even when it seems super uncomfortable, I'm like, I don't like crowds. I don't like being around a lot of people, and baseball games are fun because I'm with someone. I'm like, but just like the fact that I went and then found my freaking dad there, that's like, it was so strange. Right. Yeah. So that was fun. That happened. Did you have any like moments of serendipity this month?
Not this month, but like, I think, when I moved to New York City, that was one of the things that I really pushed for, was to learn to say yes. So I went to the length of, I'm just going to say yes to everything as long as it doesn't, endanger myself or anything like that. Like if it's just, hey, let's go here and, it's benign. Why am I saying no? A lot of it is fear-based, for whatever reason, your brain is saying, no, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And I found that 9 times out of 10, when I did that and I just said, yes, I'm going to go, it turned out to be some of the best times I've had, because there wasn't any expectation. I was just showing up like you did, and we're like, okay, what's going to happen? Let's see what happens. And it's so great.
Yeah.
Like, we put so much expectation into a lot of the things that we do. And I think it kind of steals the happiness out of that moment sometimes. Because they're like, no, it's got to happen like this. If we have the expectation and we've planned it. Because like, if you would have gone with your friend, I'm sure it would have been vastly different than it was whenever you went with your dad.
Very, very different. Yeah.
So... yeah, it's, and it's hard to get, it was hard for me to do that. And I see how hard it is for other people to do that. And I just tell them, hey, like, take a jump, like, do it. Like, the worst that can happen is X, which is like nothing, nothing happens. You're like, okay, so it's only up from here. So do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
I know, right?
It's the truth. Shia knows. I love that. That's really good. Just jumping in, just jump off the cliff of the possibility. It takes so much like gumption to do it. And
sure,
it takes like an edge of like, like you said, what do I have to lose? Is the loss just going home? Okay, that's nice.
Yeah. Right.
Great. In week 6, we talk about having a sense of abundance. And going back to my month-long art block, I haven't sold a single painting this month or a print, and it's been feeling a little tight. You know what I mean? And I'm like, ooh, having a sense of abundance when I haven't sold any paintings recently is like real confronting. And then I've got this art residency coming up that I'm doing, and I'm like stressing, and I'm like, okay, whatever you're gonna say to me, Julie Cameron, I'm just not gonna be there for this because I don't feel abundance at all. And she's like, all right, Stephanie, I hear you, but consider this. Go pick 5 flowers and dry them and have an abundance of flowers. And I'm like, fine, Julia Cameron. I will go pick 5 flowers.
You don't know me.
You don't know me. You don't know that I have so many flowers in my yard right now. So I go and I pick 5 stems of lavender, and then I dried them, and then by the end of the week, I took off all the lavender buds, and then I made them into tea, and suddenly I had lavender tea. And I think, lack of painting sales or not, looking for the abundance in other teeny tiny ways of like, okay, I have an abundance of cacti in my studio, and those are pretty great, and I love them, and it keeps you like floating, it keeps you feeling light, it keeps you feeling happy, and like having that gratitude and that like acknowledgement of, you might not have a lot of cash in the art bank account right now, but you do have a lot of paintbrushes to make cool art things, and you do have time to work on your email marketing list, and you do have like, I don't know, support from people who really like your art and will give you advice if you need it. And this week was kind of tough. It was tough. It was good, but it was tough. And I felt the most resistance for this book during this week. One of the habits she asks you to do is to keep track in a written journal or notebook or whatever, every single purchase you make, which is a great thing to do for any finance. I've been told this before many, many times. I use an app for this, but I made sure during this week to, at the end of every day, looking on this app that I have that tracks my purchases and like really looking up the amount and like kind of sitting with what I had spent that day. And I didn't find any new habits, but I think that's just kind of exposure therapy to where you're at is really good.
Yeah, because I think, personally, I have a lot of anxiety around not knowing where my finances stand. I also have a horrible habit of running from finding that out because it stresses me out. So it's like this, it's a horrible mix. So I have to just sit down and make myself pull those numbers so that I can look at them. And then there's like this weight that comes off of me of like, oh, okay, well, at least I know where I'm at. I'm not in the dark about that. And, wherever it is, I can at least head in a direction since I know where I'm at,
Totally. I do this thing every Friday, what I call Finance Fridays, where on Friday around 11 o'clock, I pull up all my different bank accounts and everything, and I just look at where I'm at. And that just like every week at Friday, sometimes I dread it, and sometimes I'm like, oh, time to open like my little apps on my phone. And it's, I don't know, just having the clarity of where you are, it is relieving, but getting yourself to open it is terrifying. And it does get easier the more often you do it. And doing it every day is kind of a lot, but it's a lot in a nice way. It's a lot in the way that like not being on social media or reading anything was a lot, where it's like, oh, okay, maybe we didn't need to go to the plant store 3 times in a week. Maybe I didn't need to do that, Stephanie. Just because you're feeling sad doesn't need to mean you need to bring all the plants home. Okay, well, that was that. No. Week 7 was called Recovering a Sense of Connection. And this is kind of like a turning point in the book, where in the first 6 weeks, it was talking about how you should distance yourself from crazy makers, from people who want to monopolize your time, for people who make you feel bad about yourself, distancing yourself from the media you consume, the things you could experience, from how you're spending your money to how you're spending your time, etc. And this week, it's like, okay, now you're going to start picking back the people you're hanging out with. It's been a month and a half of this program, and you're going to see who are you going to connect with, and how are you connecting with? Are you connecting with people because you want to be really good looking with them? Do you want to have a sense of perfectionism with them? Do you want to learn from them? Like, how are you looking at your connections? And I think this one was kind of fun. And it talked about jealousy. It talked about imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
It talked about, they had this really kind of fun exercise that was like, if you're feeling jealous of anybody, you should do this. So basically, first you're going to write down who you're jealous of. The example is my sister Libby. The reason why, she has a real art studio. And then you need to write down an action antidote, which is to fix your spare room so you can also have an art studio. And it's just like a little map of like, who are you jealous of? Why, to the most specific degree, are you jealous of them? And how could you take a step towards, one, fixing the jealousy, but two, changing your relationship with that person so you're no longer jealous and instead, an actual human.
Right.
Kind of fun.
Yeah, and I think, like, as artists, I think we are, like, in social media, artists are pit against each other through comparison. For whatever reason, doesn't make any sense to me. And somehow we buy into it, even though most of us are extremely counterculture and personally don't feel offended by another artist. Like, we love each other. Like, we know how hard we all work.
Yeah.
We share that bond, but yet somehow an Instagram post can pit me against another artist. Because I'm like, oh, well, I'm not doing that.
What do you do when you feel that jealousy?
I remind myself that we are all in this together. That we are equally underestimated as a whole by society and the value that we bring. It is not just a visual representation of something. It's the fabric of a community. It's the voice of people that don't have a voice. It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's important that we remember that our job is to be different. Like, society would be stale if artists didn't interject their creativity into life and push people in directions that they're uncomfortable with. Colleen Berry is an artist that I follow. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's fairly famous. She has a studio in New York City. She runs part of an atelier in New York City that's pretty famous. And she was talking about her Instagram account and how she was just frustrated with it. She was just like, I don't know why I'm doing this. This doesn't benefit me at all. I'm doing it because it looks good. And she's like, I don't understand. And it just kind of struck me like, we need to be different. And because at the end of the post, she was just like, I'm just going to do whatever I'm going to do. I'm not going to have any expectation on this anymore. And I said, that's beautiful. We all need to hear that because it is our job to make Instagram interesting. Like, enough of these influencer posts and all of this competition. Like, she makes some of the quirkiest Instagram posts ever, and so does her husband.
Yeah.
They're just random images. Hers are like, sometimes she'll be buying clothes for an opening that she's got to go to, and she'll just be like, what do you guys think? And like, she's just a super humble human being, down to earth, and it's just such a breath of fresh air because it's like, oh, I don't see this anywhere else on Instagram. This is her. And that's what we bring to all of this is us. Nobody else can be us.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to value that personally before somebody else is going to value that.
It's true.
So it's like, push yourself, stretch yourself, find out where you can be different, where you can be you.
Jealousy is interesting, and it takes a lot of out of you, out of your own creativity when you feel it and when you experience it. And it almost always comes from like out of nowhere. Like it hits you like a brick. I had a moment last year during this time feeling a kind of intense sense of jealousy towards another artist. And I talked about it in the podcast. It's an episode called On Jealousy, Envy, and Imposter Syndrome. You can hear it there. But at this point in time, I don't feel jealousy towards this artist anymore. And I went to a show that had some of her work in it recently. And I was like, oh, wow, this is just really cool. Like, I just felt like this artist is just so amazing. And I feel like, you know, a year out from that initial surge of jealousy, I was able to actually meditate on why I was jealous. And I think that's important if you're ever feeling this. It's like, you know, Julie has this little chart here, but really like going even deeper than just like kind of a single sentence. I was jealous of her success. I was jealous of how much publicity she was getting for her work. And I was comparing myself to her standard of work, which is frankly incomparable because she works with big brands. She works with all these like giant corporations, and I am self-represented, and comparing myself to someone who has those kind of I guess deals and connections is just like different planets, and unfair to myself to even kind of compare myself to that. And it's also revealing because it told me, oh, I want some of that. I want to be in places where I can have my art as a mural on a cool building that I really like and go to all the time. Or I want my art as a, you know, a print somewhere at some gallery, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to like actually tell you who this person is. But I was like, okay, so I want some of those things. And then I like started writing down, okay, what actually would be feasible for me in my work at its current state to start to achieve that, or start to take myself in those directions. And once I did that, once I was like, okay, I think it would be so cool to have my work as like on a baseball cap, to have my work like I don't know, I'm like as a deck of playing cards, as like things like that. I'm like, okay, you break that into its smallest step of smallest actions, which is if I want my artwork on a deck of cards, I then need to design an image for each card face. And that means I need to research what the historical likeness of that card face is, and then pick out symbols. And there I've just taken my jealousy of this artist who is succeeding and working really hard on cool things, and I've taken myself into a moment of, oh, these are things I could actually do. Like I could do them now and start my way there. And I'm no longer jealous. I'm now just feeling admiration for this person. This person did it, and it's super cool. And now I'm feeling inspired instead of jealous. And that is really cool if you can get there. Because jealousy is, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Because, I mean, you could look at it like, before you thought this was an insurmountable task to do.
Yes.
Or something to achieve. And you see through that person, oh, this is possible. Like, it's not about them. It's actually about, oh, I felt like I couldn't do this.
Yeah.
And somebody showed me that I could. And that made me feel a way about it. Like,
I felt like I couldn't do this, and I felt like there was some magic, something secret sauce that I didn't have that this person had, but really it was just, what are the logistics of making something like this happen? And being real about it. Like, do I need to make a connection with somebody to make such thing happen? Do I need, who do I need to speak to even have like a realm of an idea of how to make this thing that this person has done that I also want to achieve? It's It's a lot. And I get excited about making art just talking about it. I love this podcast.
Right?
It's so good. Yeah, it's fun. All right, so for the last week, for week 8, this was about recovering a sense of strength. And kind of like protecting your artistic survival. All artists, we must learn the art of surviving loss. It's the loss of hope, the loss of faith, the loss of money, the loss of self-belief. And then, you know, you're gonna lose many things about yourself when you try to become an artist, but you're also gonna gain many things. And so you have to like learn the hazards of being an artist and, you know, checking your mental health in the face of trying to be a creative person, and noticing that your creations are, like Nomad says all the time, your children, and being alert to who are the authority figures that will kind of try to bounce you around, and having the strength of your will to protect it and to move forward with it. It's kind of fun. She talks about it kind of, I feel like this chapter goes into taking scary steps towards your big dream. It talks about the mental blocks that happen when you have addictions to making and addictions to anxiety at the same time. And it goes into, you know, the panic attacks you're going to have when you are putting yourself out there. And it talks about, it's all about like your mental fortitude. And, you know, sometimes I did highlight one sentence in this chapter and I thought it was interesting. It's like, you know, you could think about what you want to paint and fine tune it in your mind. But instead of painting anything, you can just worry about it some more. Or you can actually pick up the paintbrush. And just having a mental fortitude that will carry you through a painting, through your art block, that I'm not saying this book gave me an art block. I think something else gave me an art block. But like taking you through and recognizing that you are in one, that is a different kind of strength that is not recognized a lot and not shown a lot. Yeah. Turns out I didn't do any of the tasks this week for this chapter, but let me read some of them. Let's see. I love the tasks at the end of each chapter. I think they're some of the most fun parts of this book. Like, you read the chapter and you're like, okay, I get the gist of the essay, but the tasks are pretty fun. And it's like, in a perfect world... Oh, wait, hold on. Some of them are, like, staggered. So it's like, you do one task and then you do a bunch of them. So... you know, who might you be like if you had a different childhood, right? What would this fantasy be if it was like a perfect different childhood? And, you know, look at color schemes. Pick a color, write a couple of sentences describing yourself in first person around the color that you've chosen. Like, I am the color red, and therefore I am passionate, and I am sunset, and I am anger, and I am blood. And I am wine and roses, and I am murder and lust, right? And that's kind of fun. Like, who are you as the color red? And then it talks about listing things that you're not allowed to do, like kill your boss, or scream in church, or go outside naked, or make a scene. And then it says you should act out doing one of those in your house. Like, what does that feel like? And what does it feel like to like have the strength of like wanting something so much and knowing that you should resist it because it could have dire circumstances, but like feeling what it feels like in an action, you know? It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Talks about what your ideal day is. I don't know. I like the tasks at the end of each chapter. I think they create more joy for my weeks. And when I've been doing the artist way, I like to do one tasks every couple of days that I end up doing my morning pages. And as I've said earlier, I haven't been doing the morning pages every day, so I've been doing fewer and fewer tasks, but I don't know. They're kind of good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah, I think it's good to push yourself. Like, I remember the task that she gave I don't remember which chapter it was, but it was early on, where it was write all the things that you hear in your head that either you or somebody else is saying to you,
Mm-hmm.
or society is saying to you, and and then look at that and tell yourself, I can't remember exactly what she had say, like, I'm a brilliant painter and, some other things at the end of all of that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, take those negatives and juxtapose them to, but I am this.
Mm-hmm.
This is who I am. When everything else wants to tell me I'm something different, this is who I am.
I like it.
That's something that I've worked on. Writing affirmations or acknowledgments of things that I've accomplished. On the days when I feel like I'm a horrible artist,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm no good, that this business is failing or whatever, I have this list of things that I can look at that says, no, you've done X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
This is why you are good. And it's not subjective, it's objective. Like, you won an award. It wasn't like, oh, I just think I'm good.
Right.
Somebody else told you were good as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's like that affirmation of what you feel about yourself from an external source, whatever that might be, whether it's people or, events or whatever. So
I love it.
It's so important.
I highly recommend, if you're an artist and if anyone ever compliments you on the internet, you should take a screenshot of it and put it in a folder and have a folder of compliments. So whenever you're feeling bad about yourself, you can just read through them. Top tier.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps you much happier in a world where people like to be mean. It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been weeks 5 through 8 of The Artist's Way. I'm going to do a last episode of The Artist's Way solo where I go through weeks 9 through 12 when I finish The Artist's Way. And that book club won't be recorded live. I'll just do that on my own. And so for next art book club, which will be a week late in September, we will be reading a new book. Da, da, da. And I'm sure I'll give you an update about how I felt The Artist's Way there too, because mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that'll be fun. So the next book we're going to read is called Nothing If Not Critical by Robert Hughes. This book is essays on art criticism, or essays of art criticism. It's a collection of essays, and they're uncompromising views on artists as diverse as Hockney and John Singer Sargent and Bacon and Picasso and Warhol. It's refreshingly amusing and articulate. Apparently, that's what it says on the back. So, this came out in 1990, I believe, and it has really good reviews on Goodreads, despite being from 1990. It's just like consistently good reviews. So I thought, hey, this could be fun. Yes. Oh gosh, no, this book first came out in 1987, so I have the 1990 version.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot, there's many, many different essays here. It looks like each chapter is about a different, a different artist, which is fun. And there's like, I think 50 of them in here. There's quite a few. So they're not super long, these essays. And honestly, I'm not expecting you to read all of the essays, but if you find some of your favorites and you want to read those first, you should do that because that's always fun. But that's the book we're going to read for September. Let me show y'all the date here. We're going to meet a week late on September 17th. There you go. 3 p.m. Pacific time. Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. We have an extra week to read this book, so it'll be good. And I love reading books that are slightly older. I think sometimes they're interesting to see how things have changed.
Yeah.
in a
Yeah, for sure.
pre-internet world. Book club. Friends and foes, it's been good chatting with you. I've been Stephanie Scott. You can find me at stephaniescott.art over on Instagram. This is Brushwork. You can find it at BrushworkPod, also on Instagram. If you like this episode, will you give it a 5-star rating or a thumbs up or a review? And you can find Visual Nomad at Visual Nomad 2_ over on Instagram, because she's awesome. And I think you'll like her art. Her art's great. I'm just saying, I'm such a fangirl. All right.
Thank you.
Friends and foes, it's been great. Till next time. Bye.